All right, here we go. The first new unit is finally done. Golden Frieza. I have all the kills for it, and I also have 350 of the alien scouters needed for his evolution item, the Supernova. And if you don't know how to get these, you can get this unit from the banner. It is a permanent unit in the banner that you can summon. And to evolve it, you need to run the new West City Frieza's invasion. It's very similar to the Naruto one, except it is Dragon Ball instead. But I got 350, so I can go ahead and buy the Supernova. So there we go. And now we can head over to the evolution area and evolve it. But this unit is going to be very cool. It is a hill unit with magic and light. I do have Reaper and pretty good default stats on an A-. So this one should be pretty good. Also, we are going to be directly comparing this unit to Metal Knight because Metal Knight is the current best air unit in the game. And this is basically the exact same unit. But let's go ahead and evolve it where we get 30% attack and Supernova. So let's go ahead and evolve that. There we go. Golden Frieza, Emperor, Mythic, Reaper. So we do have Reaper on this one and Metal Knight. And hey, we got an S rank on it. We got an S- rank on the SPA. Not too bad. But we are going to be comparing this unit to Metal Knight because they are very similar. Metal Knight does have A-, A-. But it definitely will be an interesting comparison because these two units are very different, but also very similar at the exact same time. Even down to like the AoE, like look at this. Metal Knight and Frieza both have very similar, and I think they have the exact same size AoE on placement. So this definitely will be interesting. Let's go ahead and place it down, and look at that. 5,000 damage on placement, 6.4 cooldown, and 22.6 range. Pretty good default stats, but let me go ahead and get all my money up real quick, so that way I can afford to upgrade these units because I'm going to be upgrading Metal Knight and Frieza, which is going to take a lot of money. Okay, so my money's maxed out, so let's go ahead and start maxing out Frieza. I'm going to start by maxing out the original character, and then I'll max out just a Metal Knight all the way up, so that way we compare the damages between both units. But I'm guessing let's get started. So the first upgrade on Frieza is 11.9 thousand damage, same cooldown, and 1.1 more range. So let's go ahead and buy that. Then the second upgrade is 19.9 thousand damage, same cooldown, 1 more range again. Then Death Saucer. This changes the attack, 39.8 thousand damage, 8.2 cooldown, and 25.8 range. I should also note that the first attack is not a multi-hit despite being multiple beams. But let's go ahead and buy the next attack, which changes the AoE to be a little bit bigger, and it is still a singular hit, so it is not multi-hit yet. But it is a bigger AoE, which is much better. But let's go ahead and do the next upgrade, which is 55.8 thousand damage, same cooldown, 1.1 more range, so there we go. Then the one after that is 71.7 thousand damage, same cooldown, and 1.1 more range, so there we go. Then the one after that is 95.6 thousand damage, 8.2 cooldown, and 29 range, so there we go. Then Supernova. This is one of the attacks you get for evolving it. Damage shoots up to 175.4 thousand damage. Cooldown goes up by quite a bit to 13.7. This is also with an S-, by the way, which I was not expecting at all. But 32.3 range, not too bad. Let's go ahead and buy the upgrade where we get a new AoE that is much bigger. And now he is flinging the sun at the enemy. This is spectacular. This is very much of an Escanor unit, not gonna lie. But a much bigger circle AoE. This made this unit way better. But he does have a very long cooldown, not gonna lie. His cooldown is now actually longer than my Aizen, which is 11 seconds. That is crazy. But let's go and do the next upgrade, which is 239,000 damage. It's a lot of damage. 13.2 cooldown and 35.5 range. So there we go. Then the next upgrade after that is 318.9 thousand damage, 12.8 cooldown, and 37.6 range. Very expensive upgrades too, 25,000. But next upgrade is 398.7 thousand, right below 400,000. 12.8 cooldown and 39.8 range. That is the maximum stats on Frieza. Look at that, though. Almost 400,000 damage every 12.8 seconds. That is actually incredible. Let's see what our DPS is on this unit. And it is 31.1 thousand DPS, so not too bad on the DPS on this unit. You can have a total of 3 of these placed, so not too bad. But my lord, that AoE is pretty big. It could be a circle AoE, like a full AoE, but it is not, sadly. But either way, still a very large AoE. Let me go ahead and start placing down my Metal Knight and max it out, which should take a bit because I think this is a very similar price to Frieza. And there we go. That is maxed out. So this is a Reaper Metal Knight compared to a Reaper Frieza. Now I do have the DPS written down for the Metal Knight, but Metal Knight, if you don't know, also has drones he spawns on after getting enough kills, which I also have to calculate into the DPS. So Metal Knight has 25,000 DPS by itself, which sadly is weaker than Frieza. So by default, Frieza is stronger than Metal Knight, and they are very similar prices, so you can't bring the prices into account. Metal Knight does only have 2 placements compared to the 3 of Frieza. So Frieza does have more placements alongside more DPS on the individual units. They also have very similar AoEs. Here's the Frieza AoE, and then here is the Metal Knight AoE. Metal Knight does have a smaller AoE, but it also does have a secondary AoE on all of its drones, which I'm pretty sure is single target. Just targets one enemy at a time. So let's try our best to compare this. So essentially, by default, I'm guessing I'll just go ahead and see what the total DPS is between each unit. So Frieza's total DPS is 93.4 thousand. And then Metal Knight's total DPS, with just the Metal Knights, no drones, is 50,000. So just between the unit themselves, Frieza is way, way better than Metal Knight. But let's go ahead and calculate the drones, which on average have 19.3 thousand DPS. And at most, you only really see 2 to 3. So let's say 2 drones per Metal Knight, just because you need lots of enemies to kill to have drones. So if you have a lot of like really high health enemies or very low amount of enemies, you'll have very low amount of actual Metal Knights with drones. But let's say 4 drones across both of the Metal Knights. That means that Metal Knight will have a total of 127,000 DPS if both Metal Knights have 2 drones out. So with the drones, Metal Knight is better than Frieza, but only with the drones. If he doesn't have the drones, the DPS is significantly lower. In fact, if I just go ahead and make it where there's only 2 drones total, so 1 drone per Metal Knight, that would be 88,000 DPS, which is still weaker than Frieza. So this is a very, very even match. Frieza has more DPS than Metal Knight if Metal Knights only have 1 drone each or no drones. But if both Metal Knights have 2 drones, then the Metal Knight is better. So there is a potential to have more DPS than Metal Knight than with Frieza. So honestly, just by default, because like sometimes you'll have 0 drones just because very low amount of enemies walking through, I'm gonna maybe say that Frieza might have more damage, but this is entirely up to opinion and individual units, because yet again, you could have different stats on your Metal Knight and different stats on your Frieza. I'm just lucky enough to have the exact same trait on both of them, so it's a pretty even comparison. Ignoring the stat potential, because I can't really do much about that, especially rolling an S for some reason on the Frieza, which I do not deserve to get. But I will give it to the Metal Knight. I'm pretty sure the Metal Knight is a multi-hit, and the Frieza is not. So Metal Knights will break through shields much faster. Additionally, it is much cheaper because you only have to max out 2 instead of 3. So it's only around like 200,000 instead of 300,000 for very similar damage. Also, at least for mine, it might be different. They have very similar ranges, but my Metal Knight does have more range, especially the drones having 49 range. And much lower cooldowns. Even with no S pluses, Metal Knights have half the cooldown of Frieza. So Metal Knights do shoot much faster than Frieza does. So this is a very interesting comparison. Honestly, I think these are interchangeable. This is entirely up to however you feel which one you want to use. If you want to use Frieza or you want to use Metal Knight, I think both of them are the correct choice. It's just whichever one of yours is better. So you have to go in, if you want to get both of these units, if you want to get Frieza, I definitely say it's worth it. It's quite a bit of damage, and it's also just a pretty cool unit, you have to admit. This is a pretty cool unit. But it might have to be up to your own individual units on which one of yours is better, because some units are better than others, and you can also get lucky and roll better traits, better stat potentials, and even better curses on one unit or the other. But oh my gosh, yes, this unit is absolutely amazing. I'm very excited to use this unit more often. I might actually try to use the Frieza instead of the Metal Knight for a bit just to have some fun with it, because I've been using the Metal Knight for quite a while. Outside of the Aizen, I'm pretty sure it's the oldest unit on my team. So it will be kind of cool to get a brand new air unit on my team. But let's go ahead and just quickly see, just for the fun of it, let's see what the 10% boost is on the unit. Damage is now 438,000 damage, which means the DPS is now 34.2 thousand. So pretty good DPS. If we go ahead and do the Wendy buff, which is 30% more, with 570,000 damage, which is 44.5 thousand DPS. Overall, really, really good unit. I'm pretty sure there are still better units to get. Like, if you're overall better off just trying to get, like, Escanor or something. If you want pure damage, but if you want air damage, Metal Knight and Frieza are both pretty interchangeable. They're both very similar in stats, very similar ranges. And the DPSs are very close, depending on how many drones you have, of course. It's like if you're doing something like a tournament where there's like a very low amount of enemies, Frieza might be better. But if you're doing like infinites that have like tons of units always spawning, Metal Knight might be better. But honestly, either one will get you a win because these units are strong enough to be on a team where you can just get the wave 50 without having to really worry about it. But yeah, this unit is definitely worth going for. And if you don't want to grind for this unit, and if you have Metal Knight, then you're pretty set. Metal Knight and Frieza, yet again, are very interchangeable on which one you could use.